The Lizardmen jungle continent of Lustria holds many dino monsters with specific abilities and uses, but the core three have very specific uses in battle. These are the Bastiladon, the Stegodon, and the Carnosaur. Now, I've explored monster tactics in the past, such as Monsters Mayhem and Monster Soaker, but this is the most sophisticated way for Lizardmen players to use their monsters. I was brought this idea by a fellow strategy enjoyer on my TikTok, and he brought to light a lot of the different uses that Lizardmen monsters can be used. So I like to affectionately call this tactic monster management. And, dedicated to him, you know who you are, one that we had long, lengthy talks about, well, just between the comment section. And that inspired me to make this video. So this one's to you, old boy. It's using their strengths to put them in a place that if they rampage, they can still do good damage and stay alive. Controlling rampage and using your monsters right can be the reason between victory and defeat for many Lizardmen players. And today I hope to show you guys just how to effectively use each monster to dominate the jungles of Lustria. And here we are with the first iteration. We brought 4 Carnosaurs supporting a simple melee line. Well, it is a tier 3 melee line against another tier 3 melee line. Technically Stormvermin tier 2, but they're counted as tier 3 for Skaven. So we brought 4 Carnosaurs on the side, and what Carnosaurs are used best for is for flanking around because they have an insane amount of speed. Like, the Carnosaurs have 75 speed, which is pretty fast for a monster unit, so they can flank around the sides and get the enemy missile troops up in disarray. So now they brought some heavy armor-piercing troops here with these Poison Wind Globadiers, and they will make short work of our line troops if we're not able to disrupt them with our Carnosaurs here. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple maneuver around. Have the line troops meet them in the middle, and then the Carnosaurs will come around the sides and fuck up the missile troops, so that they can't fire on the melee troops, and the melee troops will win the fight. So in typical, this would be towards the Skaven victory if we didn't have these monsters. But these monsters here, the Carnosaurs, with their superior speed, it's good for them to rampage into there. Now they can, when they rampage, they'll just ignore orders. So if they're in like a squishy unit like these back units here, if they happen to rampage, then they'll be just fine. That's a good place for them to be. Not in a spear wall, not in anything with a lot of weapon strength. Like, these guys would still be okay. But if they were in like anything anti-large, they'd be ripped from limb. So again, these guys are anti-large themselves too, so they could do good against enemy monsters. But I usually use them to like get behind and to get into the enemy backline and do some damage, cause some havoc. So we're going to speed this up a little bit. Alright, and then see, we're deploying them into the backline. The enemy is able to get off a few Poison Wind Globadier strikes, which is causing havoc on one of our troops. But we've got these Globadiers are now stopped. The Carnosaurs in there are ricking them up, and the other Carnosaurs coming for them. They're going to start retreating, so pretty much they're just in disarray. Now, what you're going to want to do is, for this tactic, Micro is your best ally, because these monsters, they can get confused. Like you see right there, he's glitching out. He got confused, so you got to keep them in the fight. They're gonna slowly, like after they do the animation, they're gonna stop fighting, and you're gonna want to make sure that you're on them so that they micro into these little blobs here, because that's what you're gonna want. The blob is the best way for the Carnosaurs to do their damage against infantry units. So that is great. Right now they are wrecking. It is wrecking these Poison Wind Globadiers here. These Gutter Runners are getting away a little bit faster because they're a little faster than the Globadiers, but they're still getting hit, and it's gonna do some damage to them, and it's laying off our Saurus Temple Guard up here, so the Temple Guard are able to hold their own, and Gorok himself is able to hold his own as well. So yeah, just have to keep the enemy. You have to keep microing them until they die. So this will take some time. So I'm fast forwarding through it. It's just, as you see, you're able to chase them away, so it gets them off of your enemy. That gets the enemy off your units, but still you're going to want to keep microwaving it, because again, your feral Carnosaurs can go out of there. But once you do rout these enemy units, feel free to charge them into the back line for some good old hammer and anvil, like so, and it helps them out a lot. It'll help out the front line. keep the front line alive and pretty much keep the enemy in disarray. But you'll want to be careful, because if you get them touched up in a big blob like that, they might be hard for them to get out, or they might just start sitting here if you forget about them. So you'll want to keep them going. Like right here, I forgot about him, but you want to keep them going so that they get more kills and that they keep them on the run. Because if you keep the enemy missile troops on the run, they're not going to be able to do their superior missile damage, and they're going to falter. So Colonelstrat, like I said, best used against enemy missile troops because of their fast speed. They're able to catch them, especially Skaven, and any enemy light troops in the back line. They're just great for that and great for flanking. And they're like a big old cavalry unit, you know? That's what I treat them as. So, oh, look at him. He's getting a nice meal. Yes, there we go. The dino got a good meal. So yeah, and eventually you'll just wear them down to where you'll be able to do enough damage and just chase them around, and you know the Colonelstrat will be able to catch up to them eventually and just wear them out and kill them all. So that's pretty much how you use the Colonelstrat here. Alright, next up is the Bastiladons. So the Bastiladons have a lot of different ways of play, because they have so many different variants. So to use them effectively, I try to use a cluster of different variants. So I usually take the Bastiladons with the Arc of Sotek for support in the main line, because the poison damage that the Arc of Sotek gives is really good. You want to have a Revivification Crystal as well for healing. And again, they do all have skinks on them that cause some poison damage. The Bastiladon with a solar engine is really good for sniping enemies. So like, high tiered like lords and stuff, it's really good for sniping. But overall, Bastiladons are generally a support unit. So they're not going to really be good at getting around to the enemy, because their speed is very minimal. But they have a lot of armor. Like compared to the Colonelstrat, they have a whole ton of armor. So they are massive tanks, and they have so much utility with these extra variants like the Arc of Sotek, the Solar Engine, and the Revivification Crystal. Plus them being regular Bastiladons, they get a missile attack too, just like Stegodons do. The Feral ones don't get them at all, but the regular ones do, and they have charge. I think he has charge reflect. No, they have Primal Instincts, which gives them a small buff whenever they go, whenever they're under pressure and they rampage. So that does buff them up a little bit. So they're a little different than typical Lizardmen, but they're still good. And we'll have the Solar Engine fire at the Lord. And then if you activate the Arc of Sotek, you're going to do a lot of damage to the enemy forces, so that's always good. And you just go bowl through them and do a lot of damage. But again, that's not going to be so much damage against these guys, because these guys have armor, so it's not going to be that good. Alright. Let's get this guy down. There we go. Let's fire at these guys then. So again, Arc of Sotek, good to use, really good to use for some damage over time, but it's not going to do so much damage over time. Revivification Crystal is good for healings. So again, if you want to heal up other Bastiladons, or if you want to heal up try to heal up some infantry units, really good for that. So always nice to have that utility in the Revivification Crystals. Oh boy, they got Goroks surrounded. Let's fire at the Warlord then. So again, having the enemy has us surrounded, so we're gonna have to work extra hard to take them down. It becomes a slog, becomes a bit of a slog after a while. But you keep activating these abilities and using what you can. Oh Jesus. Yeah, these guys are really, really tanky, so they're able to hold their own. Yeah, let's get them in there. I don't really use the solar engine against fights like this as much, because again, you're not going to really do much damage. Okay, let's heal up some of our troops. Yeah, let's get our troops healed up a little bit. There we go. Get some Arc of Sotek going. Because again, we are winning. You know, we're killing them. It's just, you know, because they're tier 2 units, they're taking less than us. I mean, actually, they've taken more than us on all fronts, because we do have ours are tier 3 units, technically. All right, now we're starting to really get some results. So I see, as I told you, these guys can take a beating, and they have poison damage, which reduces the enemy's attack. So they're just all around a good unit for support. That's what they're good for. So you'll want them to rampage when they're attacking a infantry unit that is like low tier or doesn't have a lot of armor piercing, so that they can do their damage and not take as much damage. You know, if you're going against an armor piercing target or a target that has anti-large, you're gonna have a bad time. But if you're going against, like, you know, regular troops, you know, you're gonna be just fine. Like these storm vermin are a special case, but it's just because they have a lot of armor, but they aren't doing as much armor piercing, so they're not able to really get to the Bastiladon. So that's why we're winning, because the Bastiladons are able to tank most of their damage. And again, none of them have rampaged yet. Oh, well, there we go. None of them rampaged. But in a thicker fight with other things shooting them, they might rampage. You want to keep them up front supporting the troops. That way they can tank a lot of the damage, you know. And other than the solar engine, you want to keep them up front, because the solar engine is going to be useless up front. It's not going to do. It's going to do just its base weapon, like weapon strength, for its melee attack. But its solar engine on the back is what does the most. It's a great artillery piece for the Lizardmen. So that's the Bastiladon. So let's now go into the Stegodon. All right, and here we are with our Stegodons, our good old-fashioned Stegodons. Now I know what you're saying, what you might say. Oh, where are the ancient Stegodons? Where are the engine of the gods Stegodons? Well, these regular Stegodons are better. I'm sorry to say, but these tier 4 regular Stegodons are better. They have a high armor piercing, poisonous missile strength, as well as still a high weapon strength for their, you know, going into melee, and a really high armor stat. So they're really tanky missile platforms. And the ancient Stegodon does away with the armor piercing in favor of more regular damage, and the engine of the gods does away with both of them for a special ability. So I don't really believe in those two. I don't use them in my armies as much as regular Stegodons, just because they're that good. So you're going to see how powerful these units are against basically the same setup we had with the Carnosaurs. The Stegodons are going to want to stay out of the fight. So while the Carnosaurs want to go into the back line, the Bastiladons want to go into the support line. The Bastiladons, they stay out of the fight. So these are the ones you're going to want to use. You're going to want to use cold-blooded on whenever you can, because these ones are the ones that are going to rampage and start, you know, attacking with melee when they should be doing stuff in missile, because they have such a good missile attack that's armor piercing, that they should use that first before they go into melee. Even though the melee stat is technically higher, I would rather them stay in missile so that they can do most of their damage on missile. Plus they have an insane range too, so they can already hit these guys from here, you know. They can already hit them from over here. So, you know, it's not even like a contest. They can already hit them from over here. So they're doing really well. They are really well at their job. So they can stay out of harm's way, do a lot of damage, keep the enemy missile troops down, or just, you know, hit them. You know, they're able to get them from all the way over here. So that is one thing that's really good about the Stegodons. So they're already able to hit these enemy missile troops. The missile troops are going to try to go around to get to them. They're taking heavy the closer they get, the more casualties they take, you know. They don't have a lot of ammunition, so you want to be sparing with it. But again, you're going to do a lot of damage with these guys, especially if you can get in the back line. Look, see, they're taking lots of damage. These Globadiers are. They're trying to get here to disrupt our Stegodons, but our Stegodons are able to fire up and over because of their insane range. So yeah, you want to just keep these guys out of the fight as much as possible, because they're going to do so well when they're out of the fight. Well, out of the melee fight, you know. When they're in the missile fight, they're going to do really well. But we want to keep them out of the melee fight so that they can do their work. See, they've already caused these poison wind to rout. These other poison winds are going to rout soon. We might lose a unit because the Stegodons do fire very slowly. At least they are this time. I don't know why. Maybe it's a bug. Or maybe we have to get closer. I don't know if they can fire while moving. No, they can't. But that's okay. We'll get them there. Let's get these guys over here. I think they were hitting the regular troops, because they do fire on their own when they're within range. I think they were hitting the regular troops. I don't think they were hitting the Globadiers. I think only the main missile was hitting the Globadiers, while the other missiles were hitting like the regular storm vermin. Again, see, they're going to do some damage to them, but not so much that it's going to cause them to rout. And they've already done a lot of damage to the Globadiers and the all the missile troops. So yeah. We might lose these guys. Yeah, we lost those guys, but that's okay. That is okay, because we're still going to lose they're still going to lose the Globadiers. Well, they might come back. Yeah, they might come back. That's okay. Again, you want to try to get them a little closer so that all their skinks can fire, because look at all that damage they just did when they were closer. There we go. Now they're routing. And still, pretty similar outcome. Lost a few more guys, but pretty similar outcome. And we still had all of our guys. So, like I said, Stegodons, you want to keep them close, but not too far, so that they can do their missile damage. Because if they're close enough, all their skinks are going to fire. If not, only the ballista will fire. So the ballista still does a decent amount of damage, but if you have all the skinks firing, like right on top of them, they're going to do a whole lot more damage. So they're made to go close to the enemy, but you don't want to get them too close, because then they start taking fire and they'll start to rampage. That's why you'll have to use cold-blooded on them. And I would always prioritize, if you have Stegodons in your army, to use cold-blooded on them, so that they don't rush in and waste their missile attack. Again, the skinks will still shoot, even if their ballista isn't, but the ballista is pretty powerful, as you saw. So that's the Stegodons. Let's wrap this up now, gentlemen. So that was the tactic. Those are the 3 variations. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and that you learned that, the Lizardmen, they have a lot of different ways to approach a battle with their monsters. Remember, Carnosaurs, best for speed, getting behind the enemy and attacking their weak and vulnerable missile and artillery units. Bastiladons, good for tanking and keep structuring up the weak points in the melee line, tanking damage and dishing a little bit out and healing up. They're good for utility. And then finally the Stegodons, screening the sides and peppering them with missile fire. They're really good for peppering down large unit formations or big monsters or anything that needs a lot of damage done to it. A Stegodon would do really well. Combining all these together, you'll be able to really dominate with a monster army, but they also can support a regular army just as well, and that's the sophisticated way for Lizardmen players to play with their monsters. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and remember, if you like what you see, to leave a comment down below, maybe leave me a like. That would be super appreciated, or chuck me a sub, and I guarantee you guys will like the content that comes in the future. So appreciate you guys, and as always, remember to keep it strategic, Strat fans. Colonel out.